Good evening, my dear friends. I'm Kishan Navaratna, co-founder of the Colombo Selenium Meetup. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to welcome you all for the live coding session with Cypress. Before I introduce the speaker, I would like to thank Capstars, especially the marketing team, and the Sri Lanka Software Testing Board for supporting us to organize this event. My dear friends, today's evening is going to be all about live coding with Cypress. So let me introduce the speaker, Harshani, who is a QA lead at Capstars with over 8+ years of industry experience in test automation and manual testing. So today, Harshani will walk through us Cypress. Harshani Vikramarachi, live coding session with Cypress. Over to you, Harshani.
Okay, thank you, Sean. I will share my screen. Hope you all can see the screen. Okay, so this is the roadmap for today. So I know you all know about Cypress. As a start, I will talk a bit about Cypress, and then let's do a comparison between Cypress and Selenium, and then why we should use Cypress in our test automation. What are the cool features that are available in Cypress? And how we can use those cool features in our end-to-end test automation. So these are the basic things that today I will be talking about. So first thing first, what is Cypress? Cypress is an free and open source. It's a free and open source tool and written in JavaScript. Developers also can use Cypress because it's focused on test-driven development. They can test their application while they build it. So it covers unit testing, component testing, end-to-end testing, and integration testing. So most of the test automation frameworks that are available execute remote commands through the network. But the specialty in Cypress is that it runs in the same run loop as the application. So its tests are really fast. And it comes with a bundle of other applications or the other plugins. So we need not to install them separately. So the Cypress setup is really easy. So let's compare Cypress with Selenium, since we all have experience using Selenium for test automation. So as you know, Cypress is newer than Selenium. So due to that, its community is a bit smaller compared to Selenium, and it's based on JavaScript. When we use Selenium, we have the luxury to choose a language from Java, C#, PHP, Python, Perl, Ruby, likewise. And Selenium supports almost all the locators, but for Cypress, it does not support XPath selector. We need a plugin to use XPath, since they always motivate us to use data attributes for the locators because they are less likely to change. And with Selenium, it's really easy to automate scenarios related to multiple tabs, pop-ups, and iframes. But in Cypress, we need workarounds or plugins to handle those scenarios. And as you all know, Selenium supports almost all the browsers. But unfortunately, Cypress, at the moment, it's not supporting Safari. And in Cypress, tests are really fast when it's compared to Selenium. Even when we do parallel execution in Selenium, test execution time is larger compared to Cypress. And in Selenium, we need big amount of methods to handle web element interactions, navigations, and WebDriver handling. But Cypress, it's really easy to write the code. And in Selenium, when the tests are running, the browser interface does not allow us for interaction. So we can't navigate through the DOM for elements, and we can't easily do debugging. So these are the basic points that we can compare. So let's see what are the cool features that are available in Cypress. First thing is time travel. So let me explain this with this test runner. So in Cypress, we have two main methods to execute the test. First thing is this test runner, and other thing is we can use the CI method. Later I will explain it. So here in the test runner, we have two sections. In the left side, we have the command log, where we, along with the commands, we have the pass test count, fail test count, and pending test count. Here, the total execution time. And in the right side, we have the app preview, and we can change the resolution, and we have a Cypress element locator. Let's say when a user hover these commands, app preview shows the UI of that state or UI at that time. So that's why that's what we call as time travel. This is really helpful in debugging. And our second point is debuggability. As I said, time travel supports debugging, and with this command block, if there's an error, this will show it in a way that really easy to understand. And other than that, we can use side.log to log any specific thing that we need to verify. Let's say we need to check whether we are getting the correct element or whether we are getting the correct element text. In order to do that, we can easily log it using side.log. And also, since Cypress runs as the same run loop in the application, we can use developer tools, our favorite tool, to do debugging. So it's really easy to debug with Cypress. And real-time reloads. Let's say we are using test runner to execute the test and it's open. We are doing any change to our script. So test runner automatically detects this change and it automatically executes the new code with the changes. So this is what we call as real-time reloads. But this is really helpful. But if we feel like this is inappropriate, we can easily switch this off by changing wait check for changes in Cypress config file. Most of the Cypress features, we can switch them on and off using Cypress config file. I will show this later. So here, in order to switch off the real-time reloads, we can switch off check for file changes and automatic waiting. In Cypress, it automatically waits for 4 seconds to 4 seconds for DOM-related commands or assertions. So it's really easy for us to write the code. Consistent results. Because Cypress wait 4 seconds for the element and the assertions, and it's run in the same run loop as the application, tests are less flaky. When we are doing Selenium automation, most of the time we face flaky tests. But in Cypress, due to these two reasons, tests are not flaky at all. For every test execution cycle, you get consistent results. This is really helpful. Screenshots and videos. By default, Cypress take screenshots and videos. So again, we can switch on or off this feature. And again, we can manually configure this by using side.screenshots. And most of the time, people use Apply tools to get the screenshots, where from the Apply tool dashboard, we can easily compare the UI for each test execution cycle with the base image. It's really helpful to identify the UI changes. Network traffic control. Let's say we have to test a front-end error, which is triggered due to a network error of 500. So in order to test this stuff, this type of a scenario, we can use side.intercept. We can easily change HTTP request, body, header, response, or the response time, and easily simulate this kind of corner cases. So it's really easy to test these scenarios with Cypress. So these are the special features that are available in Cypress. So let's see how we can utilize them in our end-to-end test. So let's jump into the demonstration. So for that, I have already created a folder, and as the initial step, I need to create the package.json file. For that, I can simply execute npm init command. So I will create that with the default value. So I will hit enter and yes. So here you can see this package.json file where we can add the commands that we need to execute, and when we install packages, we can see them here. So now we installed, we added the package.json file, and then let's install Cypress. For that, I can use npm install Cypress. So it will take some time. So I install Cypress as a dev dependency. The difference between the dependencies and dev dependencies are, let's say we need some plugins while we are developing the script. So we can install them as dev dependencies. Let's say we need some plugins in order to execute the test. For that, we can install those packages as dependencies. So here you can see Cypress added as a dev dependency. And then we can open the Cypress test runner. For that, I have to use a package executor, npx Cypress open. This will open the test runner. Until it opens, I will explain the application that I'm going to use for the automation. So here I am using the Cypress real world app. There we have to input the username and password. I am using an already created static user. I will log into the system. I will open the developer tools as well. So here after logging, we can see the username here and the transactions that I have done using this account. So these are visible. So the basic flow that I'm going to automate today is to log in with that static user and verify the username and do a transaction. To do a transaction, we can click on this new button, search for a user and click on the username, then input the amount and a test comment and a comment, and I will be going to request that amount. So I'm going to verify this message. This is really a simple test. I want to show how we are going to structure this. So this is the basic test flow that I will be automating. So let me minimize that. So Cypress launchpad, this is the Cypress launchpad. When we execute npx Cypress open command, it opens this launchpad. From here, we can select the test type that we are going to follow. So I will be doing end-to-end test. So I'll use that. Here we can do component testing as well, as I mentioned earlier. I will use end-to-end testing. Later, we can change this as at any point. So when I created end-to-end test, you can see there are a few files added. So this window shows what are the files that added. So here it added commands.js file and example.json. There are some files. So let's see them later. I will click on continue. Here we can select the browser that we want to execute. For now, I will be using Chrome. Here it opens another window. Here we can create a simple spec file using this. So this name, we can change it later. I will create a spec file. You can run and see this. For now, I will close this. So here's the spec file. Here we can see it created this IDE folder, and inside that we have the spec file, and we have a folder for pictures where we can have our data. Let's say we have a set of users. For that, we can have a user.json file. And let's say we have another test data set, we can have separate feature files for that. Inside support, we have command.js file and this E2A file. I will explain this later. And this is the config file. This is where we can configure things. Okay. So let me show you old Cypress. Sorry, there's a power cut. Let me share the screen. Share my monitor. Can you guys see the screen? Kishano, sir?
Yep, can see.
Okay. So this is the basic folder structure that we had in earlier Cypress versions. So the latest version that I'm using, Cypress 10, and this is the earlier Cypress version project structure. There we had this fold called integration, and here we had only file type as spec, but now we have the file type as site. Here you can see the difference. So I will be writing our first test. So in order to do that, I have to locate the elements. Let's log out from this. And here we have this ID for the username. And again, we have an ID for the password. For now, I will be using the IDs. So let's write our first script. So again, we have to change this URL. So my URL will be this. And in order to locate the element, we use sci.get. And since we are using the ID, we should use this. And Cypress use command chaining. So once the it yields subject. So once we locate the element, we can directly type the username there. So I will type the username. For now, I will type the things in this page. Later, we will move these into the relevant folders. And then for the password, let's execute this and see. So you can see it navigated to the URL, visit command, then it get the element with username ID, then it type the username, and it get the element with password ID, and it types secret. So here I will be using this Cypress locator to locate sign in button. Here you can see it get always the data attribute if it is available. We can simply copy this command and use it in our script. So here I can click on this button. Let's execute this again and see. So it's signing. So I will verify this username for now, but it's not a good practice in Cypress. I will explain it later. For now, I will verify this should contain username. For the assertions, we can use the assertion library Cypress uses is Chai assertion library. It supports both TDD and BDD assertions. BDD assertions in the sense this should expect things like that. BDD assertions we can divide into two parts, explicit and implicit. This should comes under implicit, and we can use expect as well. It's called as explicit assertion. And TDD assertions, normally we use assert dot things like that. Those are called as TDD assertions. So this test should get passed. Let's see whether assertion getting passed. Here you can see this assertion passed. So assert expect this element to contain this username. Let's see if how let's change the username and see how we can get the error log. So you might have seen this executed more than the previous command, since it tried till 4 seconds to locate the elements and do the assertion related to DOM. It tried for 4 seconds. That's why this test executed more than the previous thing. So here we get the error. This expected to contain this username. So it says that timeout trying after 4 seconds. So this is how we can show an error. Here it shows one error. So this is the basic login. Then let's do the transaction. Here we can locate this element. Again, it's using the data attribute. I will just copy these things and do this. Click on this element. And we click on the element, we have this search box. Here we can type the name that we are going to search. And we can click on that name. Here we can use this contains as well. We search from this name and we can click on the element that contains that name, or we can use this element locate and get it. Let's say we are using this username. So we can do it like site dot contains. And we can click on this username. Here you can see for this username, that ID is unique for each user. So we can simply use only the ID. We can remove this part if you want. And once we click on the user, we get amount and comment sections there. For the amount, we have amount ID. We can locate the element using ID. We can type the amount there and locate the comment text box using ID. You can type the comment and then we can click on the request button. And then we can, when we click on the request button, we get this transaction complete box. We can locate it and we can verify whether it contains the relevant text. For that I didn't locate the command on an element, so I will copy paste the command. So here that element has the class, that message box has the class as this. So I will be checking whether it's visible and it contains this text. Let's execute this and see. So I didn't change the username. Search the same. Here it have the search field, then it type Arly and it click on this and it get the user, then this element, it not located in the element. Oh, sorry. We click these two locators do this catch the same element. So here I am catching it using username and then I'm using this one. So I will comment one thing. So you see, we can easily debug with this command block. It's really easy for debugging. Okay, that's it. So here we check the visibility and then the message. So this is so simple as you can see. So let's see how we can improve this code. So let's move this base URL. Basic practice is to have this base URL in this config file where we can have it here. Base URL. We can copy the base URL simply from here and move it here. Here now we have the base URL here and we can move the data also into the fixture files. Test is executing with base URL. For now, I will close this. Here, I will rename this fixture file as user since I'm going to have user data here. We can rename this to username and then password. Okay, let's have the username and password here. So this is the username and the password is secret. Okay, let's remove this. So now we have the user JSON file. Let's import this in the spec file. We can simply import it. Import, let's say user. Pictures and then user.json. Okay, now for these variables, we can use simply user dot username and then here user dot password. For now, I will change only these two fields. Anyway, we are moving this into form. So this is how we can use pictures, and we move the base URL here. And now let's have the page object modules. For now, I will create a folder called form, page object module, and for that I will have one file for login page, login page.json. Okay. So for this, we can create a module and export it, or a class. So with ES6, we have the luxury of using class. So I will be using a class login, export. Okay. So we can move the login elements and that elements related methods here. So I will copy this code so it will be easy for me. So we can set the elements at getters. So I will use username field. So let's return. I will copy this code. Let's do the same thing for other elements as well. Here, replace this with password. And this thing also. Sorry if I'm having any typos. So here we can have this. Here, this is sign in button. The way you are handling the methods or the variable names, it depends on the way that you are practicing it. It's totally okay. And now we need okay, now we have the elements and let's write the methods to interact with them. Let's input username. So for that, we need username field, and let's type. So here I will use username parameter. Let's type the username. Okay, so as you can see here, Cypress used command chaining. We also can do this. So I will use return this. So command chaining, it's really easy to understand the commands, and it will limit the commands that you use with that relevant class. It's really readable. So let's use that and password, input password. Then we have to click the login button. Then last one is to verify the username. username. Okay, so we are done with login class. Let's delete this. Okay, now let's rename this as login. So let's import our login class here. Then login page. And now for these things, we can simply use login. Login dot input username. So from fixture files, we are getting the username and then dot uh, password. So some typos, password, and then let's click on login. You can see how readable is the code when we use command chain, and then verify username. That's it. Let's execute this and see. Okay, you can see it is passed. Then let's move this accounting as well to another file. Let's create account page.js. If you have any questions, you can use Q&A box and put your questions later. End of the session, we will be answering them. Spot. Let's have the account related elements here. I will delete this for now. We'll copy this right here. So I need not to go again and check the limits. Let's see. Click transaction button, then the search bar. And then the name. We have field. Text field and this. I'm not using proper names for now. This one. This is comment. This is okay, and we have the message box as well. Okay. So first, let's navigate to the transaction. Navigate to transaction. For that, I need to click on this transaction button. And then I will write the searching part here as well. We can divide the methods according to we wish. So this part explained. Here we should type the name. Address that, and then we should click on the name div. That's name div. After that, we have the transaction. To make the transaction, first we need to add the amount. Then we need to add the comment. Then we need to click on the request button. I'm not using proper names. Yeah, amount and comment. Then we have to done the verification part. Visible. And then contain the message. Okay, I think we are done with the account class. Okay, let's create a separate class for no, let's have it here. Okay. Here we can use import account. Home account page. Then let's go. Okay, in order to parameterize the message, again, we have to have another picture file. Let's see, message.json. Success message. And we need to import this picture file as well. And message JSON file. Okay, now let's replace this code. Account dot first navigate to transaction. I think we need name. Okay. And then make transaction. For that we need the amount and the count. Okay. Then we have verify message. For that we need. Okay, I think we are done with its execute. Can see. Okay, you can see these steps executed as it is. So, okay, let's move this login thing to a separate file. Since we have separate test cases for logging, so we need a separate spec file for logging. I will copy paste this and change it. Okay, yeah, I will rename this file. I will change the login thing. Yeah, let's say this is login spec and this is X login. And here, so this is account spec and here this transaction. Okay, so you can see we are testing the login part at this login spec file. So we need not to test it again in this account spec file. For that, we can bypass the login, UI login. For that, we have this command chase file where here we can add our new commands using add, or we can override existing commands. Let's say we need to change the site.visit command. So we can override it. For now, I will be adding a command. So here, it's no point again adding this same UI logging thing in this commands file because it anyways take time. We need to bypass this UI thing. For that, one thing that we can do is, let's see what are the network calls that it trigger when we log in. So let's log in. So you can see here we send a post request to this URL. So its body is this, and we get a response. Let's use this in our commands file. So here for command, let's say Cypress dot commands dot add. First, we need the name. Let's say login. And then we have the callback function. Okay, for that we have side dot request. Here, the method is post, and we have the URL as well. So the URL, let's copy it from here. This is the URL. Here, let's paste it. And then we have the body. So for body, as you can see, we have this type as login, and we have the username and password. So we have type. Login. We need username, password. We have username. Okay, that's it. So let's see what is the response that we get for this. Let's log the response and see. So I can use sci.log response.body. Let's see what is the response here. So here for the response we have use object. Let's type the use object. Okay. So now we can use this login in our account page. For now, let's comment this, and we can comment this as well. I will use site.login user.username. Let's execute this and see. And I should go to accounts. So you can see we have this object here. Let's see. Let's run this again. Here, as you can see here, it shows the use object ID and everything. So for now, let's keep that like that. And since I have direct access to the application, I can use window object as well. So I will be using the window object for the login, and for that, I will just simply copy paste the command. Here you can see I have used sided window, and then I have called the auth service method, and same thing, we have login, username and password. So for that in accounts page, save this accounts page. Let's say here I have direct login. I will call that. Let's unconnect this. Save it and save. So you can see we bypassed the UI login and then we didn't use the API thing, but we directly use the window object and executed the login method. But what it is advised in Cypress is to use this API call and login, because since we are doing doing an end-to-end test, it better to always interact with the application and do things. So other than using the window object, we can use this. Okay, so now we have used commands, and then what we should do. Let's see. Okay, let's say I will explain about alias. For that, I will create another page. I will copy this and paste again. I will call this spec as user, let's say. Okay. For every test here, we don't have any before each or before any hooks after each. We directly wrote the test in it hook. So here, the logging part and everything that is common for every test, we can have it in a before each or before. Since we can't, in Cypress, we can't have logging or things like that in before, because before every test, Cypress automatically cleans the cookies, local storage, and things like that. So before every test, we have to log in. They do this to have a clear state before the every test. So let's have before each. Let's say this is here. Let's say here we have file.login with user. Okay. I will comment this out. We need to have this as well. For now, I will comment this call. Okay, here we have the login method. For now, I will return this user. Here for that user, we have this user ID. I will return that user ID. For that, I will do return response dot ID, then the user object, and then ID. Okay. We are in user class here. Now this returns response. So now here we log it. I'm going to explain the alias. So for that, I'm using this. Okay. Now let's execute this test and see. Here I have logged the resource in before each hook. I will do the same thing in this it hook. Here inside it I am logging the resource, and inside before each also I am logging this resource. So let's go to the spec file and I will use a user. Okay, you can see we have these resources logged here in before each. For it's that's that. Let's before each. So I can easily trigger resources. It's a command, please. Let's see why it's not. Yeah, in you can see in it says that resource is undefined. So in order to handle this, we can simply use a variable, let's say let name, and we assign this resource response to the name, and then we log the name. Then it should work. Here you can see inside test body, we have the ID. But in Cypress, it does not encourage us to use variables like this in everywhere. In order to handle this, it has alias. The basic main idea of alias is to share context. Let's say we get something in before each, we need that for other tests. So what we can do is we get this as get this as alias, and we use it in other test methods. This is what Cypress encourages us to do. So before each, now we have this login. So here in this login, we can have the alias. So let's see. Let's delete this, and as let's say this is user. Okay. So we have user inside this. Let's see whether this is working. So again, it's said user is undefined because here when we are using alias like this, we can't use callback function. That's why we are getting that error. Let's change it. Let's change it and see. You can say it's logged the ID. So this is the basic one basic usage of alias to context for context sharing. Okay, let's see the other usage of that. Let's say I verified the username once the user login. Let's say this username is loaded after all the transactions are loaded. Let's say we have these 100 or thousands number of transactions. The username is loaded only after these transactions are loaded. In order to handle that, we can simply use a wait method, but it totally depends on the network and the number of transactions that are available. It totally depends the loading time. In order to handle a thing like that, we can wait. Here you can see this is the method which loads all the transactions. In order to handle this smoothly, we can wait till all the transactions are loaded and then verify the username. So you won't be able to see an improvement in this specific scenario because there are less number of transactions, and this username does not wait until the transaction to be loaded. I'm just telling a test scenario. I will show how we can do something like that. So you can use this in your day-to-day testing. So in order to handle that, we can use, I will use this login function here. So before verifying the username, we have to wait till all the transactions to loads. Once that's done, we can handle it. So for that, I can use side.intercept. So the here method is get, and we have the URLs like this. Here we have get and the URL. So let's say this is one section. So before verifying the username, we have to wait till transactions. So we can do this. Sorry. I.wait. Here we wait till successfully complete this get transaction, and then only we verify the. So this is login. You can see it waits till the transactions to be completed, and then it will verify the username. So this is really helpful in the scenarios that let's say once we do the transaction, after this transaction, let's say we are doing a transaction, it's a network call is a post call. Once this post call is success, then only we get this success message. So for a scenario like that, it's really easy, and it's reduce the flakiness of the test when we use this type of a wait. We can wait till successfully complete this post, and then only we can verify the message. We can do things like this to reduce the flakiness of the test. So this is the second usage of the alias, so we can use it in waitings. And similar to this here, context sharing, I used a method as alias here. Similarly, we can use is to get an element. Let's say sci.get, let's say here username or ID, data attributes, anything, we can get it as alias and use it in our code. There is another way of using alias. So this is the basic things about alias. Now let's see how we can generate reports. Okay, for that I will be using Mocha Reporter, which is a plugin. For now, let me close this test runner. Okay, for that, I will run npm install. Here again, I am installing Mocha as a dev dependency. Okay, it's installed. After installing, we have to do a couple of things. First thing is we need to add here this. You can easily find these things in the plugin itself. So we need to add this as the reporter, and then this is we are adding these things to Cypress config file. These two, and here you can see command file, we call it before we execute the spec files, because we import is here in E2E.js file. Similar to that, we need to import our reporter as well. So let's import it here. Okay, here you can see this. So earlier I executed test using test runner. Now I will execute test using CI. For that, I can simply run the command using npm and package executor, Cypress run. If I execute this command, it will execute my test. Let's say, let me have that in this package.json file. That is one usage of package.json, where we define the tests. So it's easy for other developers to use this. npx cypress run. So let's run npx test. First of all, I save those files. Let me close all the files. So here you can see it execute this command npx cypress run. So when we use npx cypress run, Cypress automatically execute test in Electron browser. We need not to install it. For any other browser, we need to have that browser in our machine. For Electron, we need not to install it. Cypress automatically execute the test in Electron in headless. We can use header to get it in visible. So test are running. It's run user spec file. Okay, done. All done. Don't have any failed test cases. Here you can see in the reports we have index.html file. And it's getting time to load. Until that, I will show, we have these recorded videos, as I said earlier. Here you can see the videos of the executed spec files. And also, since we don't have any field test, we don't have screenshots. So here's the test file. Here you can see I have all the spec files. I don't have any failed spec. If we have a failed spec, we will have these screenshots in along with the report, and we have the screenshots in a separate folder. And these are the basic things on reports. And I will show how we can use Jenkins job in order to handle those things. I will simply go through a Medium article. So first of all, we can click on new item. Then we select freestyle project and give it a name. And then here we can configure how many builds we will keep. Let's say we are going to always keep 5 builds. For how many let's say we need to verify the previous builds, so we keep about build for 5 days, things like that. So we can have the Bitbucket repo or the GitHub repo credentials, relevant credentials. In the Git, we can select Git and add necessary repository URL and credentials. And then we can, let's say if it is a regression suite, we might executing it periodically. And if it is a smoke suite, let's say if there are few number of test cases, we might have it in a CI/CD build pipeline. So this is this job we will configure periodically. So for that, we can use cron expression in order to, sorry. I think I closed it. So here you can see how we can verify a cron expression. This document explains it, how we can verify cron expression. So where we have 5 characters in a cron expression. First thing is for a minute. Second one from the left side, first thing is for minute. Then we have hour, and then we have the date, and then the month, and then day, whether it's Monday, Sunday, likewise. So you can, there are a lot of documents related to cron expressions using one thing, and in Jenkins itself explain how to configure it. And then we can click on build, and then at build step, when we can select execute Windows batch command, then we have to give this command that we are executing. And then for the report generation parts, we are already creating a HTML report from Mockhausen. So we can click on and add post build action and then publish HTML reports. So here we need to give the directory that the HTML file is directory of the HTML file, and we can report the title. Here that file name is index.html. If we have renamed it, we can change this. So these are the basic steps that we have to follow when we are doing having a Jenkins job. So these are the basic things that I wanted to cover from the demonstration. So Sarah, if you have any questions, you can post them to Q&A.
Thanks for that, Harshini. There actually are quite a number of questions that we already have. So what we're going to do is we have about 10 minutes for a quick Q&A. I see that a lot of you have logged in your questions in the chat box, and some of you have put it in the Q&A as well. So let's kick off. So once again, Harshini, thanks so much. And of course, thank you to our audience as well for being so engaged. So let's kickstart the questions, right? So one of the questions that has come in is for screenshots, does Cypress support only Applitools? Because as far as I recall, Applitools is not an open source tool.
Yeah, for screenshots, Applitool really support that. From the free version, we can use it up to some extent, as I remember. But in Cypress itself have side.screenshot option where we can use it if we want. Using side.screenshots, also we can have a to some extent we can cover that. As you can see here, if I have a failed test, actually Cypress record test upon failures and have the screenshots, we can configure it, we can change it actually, and we can have the screenshots. Again, this Mockhausen reporter, it also get the screenshots. So I think we can handle it by ourselves.
All right. Thanks, Harshini. And thank you, Steve, for the question. The next question is how to do automation when two-factor authentication is required for login.
Let's say about the captchas and something like that. Actually, I'm not sure whether we can use Cypress or we can bypass that, because we don't have any network calls for captchas as well. If someone knows that, you can share. But let's say a two-factor authenticator in the sense we are getting a call to a mobile number or something like that. Again, we have some, non-APIs or the sites that we can use easily with Cypress. We can use a site.request to those sites and get those authentication factors. I think by that way, we can easily do.
Thank you for that. The next question is, can we use before or after methods in this framework? I'm assuming it's the framework that you just discussed. Also, how to generate a test report of this framework?
Yeah, the report that I generated is a test report, that Mockhausen report. We can use before and after. I specifically use before each because Cypress clear cookies, local storage before each test. So we have to log in before each test. That's why I use login in before each. There can be some scenarios where we need it only before the first test. So for that scenarios, we can use before. But let's say Cypress is not recommended to clear cookies or do things after each. It's always say you should set the state or clean the state before every test. So let's say we have two tests. Second test should not depend on the first test state. It should be a clear state before the second test. That's why we always do things in the before it. Anyways, if we have any scenarios that we need to use before or after, we can use them. Since Cypress is using Mocha, we have the luxury of using all the hooks that are available in Mocha.
All righty. The next question is, what are the best practices that we can utilize in Cypress?
Yeah, so I explained, let me share my screen. I explained that we can do this verification part in login page. This element is available in the main page, the let's say transaction page, but I'm doing that verification in the login page. This is not a best practice in Cypress, though I did it. So what they are saying is use one spec file for a one page. This is the first thing that they are saying. But sometimes we can break it, and we have the luxury to do things in our own way. So for this, I can simply verify the URL change or a tab change in this page, and I have a separate transaction page to do all the verification parts or transaction related code there. This is the first thing that Cypress asks us to do. And another practice is, let's say, they always ask us to use data attributes other than other elements, which are more related to CSS or JS. They are not encouraging us to use them because they are more likely to change. And as we use alias, they encourage, and it is a best practice to use alias here, this file, for context sharing. Other than using variables like late-con, we can use alias always. It's a better practice. And here for weighting, we might simply use sci.weight with a number. It's not encouraged. It is not a best practice. Always here, this page, sorry. Here we can use simply sci.weight a number, but it is not encouraged to use. We can use alias and weight in the correct way. And another thing, as I mentioned earlier, other tests depending on the previous test state, it's not a good thing. That's why Cypress automatically clear cookies, but we can configure it to perceive cookies. So let's say we need this session ID for the other test, we can keep it. We can simply change all the configuration, default configuration that Cypress has. And in Cypress, they encourage us to keep the spec file that it will execute within 1 minute. When the tests take long time to execute, our commands and application tend to take more memory from the machine, so it's not encouraged. We should always try to break the spec files and keep them within 1 minute. And I think those are the basic things that we should consider.
All right. The next question is actually one that has, it's a piece of code that's actually being shared by Thelina. So what I will do is I will share it again in the chat. Thelina wants to know if this is correct, and if this is what is, he has been doing his test cases like this. So he wants to know if this is correct.
Yeah, this is correct. Before each you log in, and after each you need not to clean session storage, because Cypress automatically do it. Actually you need not to use a logout method at least, because it clean the cookies and local storage. I think we need not to clean it by ourselves, because it do. If you are perceiving the cookies or local storage, session storage, something like that, Actually, you should do it before each, not after each. Before every test, you should have a clean state. So that's it.
Hope that answered your question, Tilina. The next one is, how can we use the hover function in Cypress? As this is there in Selenium, but couldn't find it in Cypress.
I haven't used that, but I think I have when I go through Cypress articles, I have noticed that we can easily use hovers and drag and drops using Cypress, because with the test runner, it's really easy to test or something like that. Again, make it a interactive session. We can ask from the audience as well whether they have used that or they have experience with hover.
Sounds interesting. So everyone, I believe that you know that the chat box is open for your communication as well. So do chime in. You can drop your comments into the chat box, and I think that Sandali actually has already dropped that in and has said that for Hover you can trigger events. So I hope that answers the question, and I think that
yeah. And also I should mention, Sarah, there's nothing that we can do anything from Cypress, because it's really famous. There are a lot of third-party plugins that we can use for document uploads. Cypress itself, we can do uploads, downloads, things like that. And there are a lot of plugins that we use that we can use in order to handle the things actually.
Right. Oh, and Sandila has also just put in another quick comment saying that there is a real hover bracketed method as well. So thanks for that, Harshini, and thanks for the question. It's definitely sparked up a little bit of conversation in the chat as well. And thanks, Sandali, for also sharing your knowledge. The next question is from Prabhu, and it's, can we use before or after methods in this framework? Oh no, I think that we already answered that.
Yes.
Yes, my mistake. The next one is from Isuru. It is, what is the most recommended method in identifying elements? Is it cy.get in brackets custom XPath, or using cy.contains in brackets and in inverted commas string?
Yeah. I can't find that chart.
Yeah, let me just quickly.
Custom XPath contains. We can use both. In Cypress, they always recommend to use cy.get the data attributes, but it depends on the application that we have. Let's say the developers of the application, they haven't used any data attributes for the elements, so we can't help it. Then we have to go for another locator where we can use any ID, CSS selector, things like that. Actually, when we use cy.contains, it's more generic. Let's say we use cy.contains submit. There can be in the same DOM, there can be more elements like that. So we need to be mindful on that. We always go through the DOM and see whether you are getting a unique locator for your element, which is less likely to change with the future releases. So this is the main thing that we need to lock in.
All right. The next question is, what if tests are failing in Cypress, and how can we verify it?
Sorry?
What if tests are failing in Cypress, and how can we verify it?
Yeah, easily we can use the command log. Let's say when we are executing test in CI method, we using Cypress run command, we don't have the luxury to go through the command log and verify. In a specific scenario, first we can see whether it's a browser specific issue. Let's say Cypress automatically execute test in Electron browser. So we can use another browser and see whether it's a browser specific issue. And then it can be an issue in CI/CD build pipeline. We can verify it. We can check it again whether there's an issue with build pipeline, or it can be an issue with the machine that we execute the test, that let's say the local machine have all the necessary CPU resources and all the environment variables, things like that. But the CI executor might not have those resources. We need to check that. And also we can enable videos and screenshots. It's really easy to locate the issues or bugs using that. So these are the basic things that we can do.
Right, thank you, Harshini, for that. There's actually another question from Telina, which is again a little piece of code, and he's asking how to convert this XPath into a CSS class. So let me just drop this once again into the chat, and maybe you can take a look at it and give us your answer.
CSS class. So here, this is since this is a XPath, I need the whole element in order to find the class or the other locators. Actually, with the XPath, I think I can't say the CSS class. He means the CSS selector. Actually, if you have this kind of a really lengthy XPath, it's actually not good to use this kind of a locator.
I think Sandali has put in a comment again. Instead of using CSS, we can use XPaths. There is an NPM package for that.
Yeah, there are several packages that we use for XPath, but it's not advised to use these type of locators actually. But if there's a change in the DOM structure, this will break the code. With Cypress, though they not encourage to use XPath, as I explained earlier, there's a separate plugins that we use to locate XPath actually.
Cool. So before we jump into the next question, I'll quickly answer this one. Someone has asked if you can get a video recording, which will be useful when practicing. Yes, of course, all the attendees and registrants, if people have not been able to attend, will be receiving a recording via email. We will be hosting it on YouTube as well, so that you can access it whenever it's required for you. So yes, we will be sharing a recording. The next question is, can we use multiple reporters? Let's say I want to use Mocha Awesome Reporter and Case Reporter. Can I use them both?
Yes, we can.
Right. Let me just, some of the questions are in the chat and some of them are in the Q&A, so I had to flip between the two. So apologies, guys. I had to keep flitting between. All right. Another question from Isuru, and that is, can we place those methods written in the account class in the command.js class, considering it as a common method?
Yeah, let's say there are common methods that we use, that we have to use in each and every spec file. We can use it in command file, but there's one rule. We should not use UI related methods in command file. We can do that, but there's no point in using UI related methods in command files since it takes time. So we can easily bypass the UI using window object or these side request. We use API methods. We can use them for the account thing. Let's say when creating a new transaction, we send a post request to the backend. So we can simply use that API call in the command and automate it because we might be using it in any other class. For login, download, things, common things like that, we can use command.js file.
Super. Thanks again, Harshini. And so we've actually run a little bit over time. So we will take one more question, and then after that we will close it in for the day. We shall see if there's any way that we can get the other remaining questions answered for you guys in any other way. So the last question that we will take for the day is, can we throttle the network speed when we execute tests in Cypress?
Yeah, we can do that. Let me share my screen again. Here, I will I'll go to this UI. Then here you can see here not throttling. Here we can use then existing, since Cypress, we have the luxury of using developer tools. You can open it and select the thing that we need, throttling type, and we can add our customized throttling as well. Using this, we can do throttling. We can change the network capacity or the speed and do our testing. Yes.
Sounds good. So once again, thank you, Harshini, for conducting the session. Thank you again to our audience for listening in and for being so engaged. Thank you for dropping in so many questions. Thank you for engaging during the session. And of course, to the people who've contributed as well, their own thoughts and their own experiences using Cypress and other technologies. Thank you for your contributions. It's always great to have an interactive session where everyone can learn from each other. A big thank you, of course, to the Columbus Selenium Meetup, as well as the other associations that helped us to pull this event off. GapStars is, as always, thrilled to collaborate and to share a lot more of our expertise with the outer community. So thanks once again for the opportunity. We hope that everyone enjoyed today's session. We hope that you guys learned a whole lot. We will be hoping to have similar sessions like this in the future as well. So do look forward to it. We'll be having some stuff up. Do follow the Columbus Selenium Meetup for any updates that we might be having. Do follow GapStars as well. We have a whole lot of stuff coming up in the upcoming months. And stay tuned. We're happy to have done this session for everyone. Right. So with that, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much. Thank you, Harshini. Good evening. Have fun and have a great week ahead.